Word in Your Attic, a Zoom with a view.
By Boyd Hilton. Boyd, lovely to see
Boyd,
you.
welcome. Can we see Can we see your T-shirt? Is that Neil Young?
Yes.
I'm trying to work it out.
It's Neil Young. This is one of my show and tells, really, because these are two of my favourite things in the whole world, which is Neil Young and Supreme, which is a New York City skate clothing company.
Oh, right.
And I've been obsessed with both for many years, and bizarrely they collaborated.
They've come together.
They came together. I felt like just for me, if I'd have requested anyone to be on one of their T-shirts, it would have been Neil, and they did it.
Are you one of those people? You can tell me about the mysteries of skate clothing. I know nothing about this, but occasionally I'm walking through Soho before this current situation, and suddenly see enormous great queues so long that they require security men to keep them in order. And I think, which superstar are they possibly queuing up to get the autograph of or whatever? And I find they're queuing up to go into these kind of shops.
This shop. It's all Supreme. Supreme has the queue, every Thursday when they drop the new array of clothes. But I went into the shop when it opened in 1994 in New York, and had no idea. I just loved the logo. It's this logo here, the logo, and I've loved it ever since. And now it's become this global phenomenon. Yeah, and mostly kids now, rather than men in their in their middle age. Balls.
You carry it off, don't worry.
Thanks, Mark. Thank you. But it is incredible. It's this absolutely massive phenomenon. There's a whole resale industry that goes on. Luckily, I know the manager of the London shop, so he gives me.
I bet you do.
Yeah.
Bet you do.
Yeah, but I once threw away a Supreme jacket because it didn't really fit me properly. And I thought, I don't really need this one. This was about 10, 11 years ago. And that jacket now sells for about £15,000.
No, you're kidding me. That's astonishing.
But it's bigger than music, isn't it? Really?
It's become a huge phenomenon. Yeah, and there's honestly there's websites. Dozens and dozens of Instagram accounts, all devoted to reselling and people buying vintage because everything's limited edition. They only put out a certain number of each item, and they never restock. So it's a whole special system.
So how are you getting on in those times? Where are you? Where do we find you?
I'm in my flat in SE1, and to be honest, it's fine, really. It's absolutely fine. I haven't got an attic. It's a big open plan flat, basically. So it's like one giant room, very lateral. So I've got kind of all my stuff just stacked up wherever I can put it. But in terms of the lockdown, I've been working every day. I haven't been furloughed. Our magazines are still publishing, thank God. People are still buying them somehow. God knows how.
Right.
And
if your professional life is mostly watching TV and entertainment on screens, it's hardly going to change things massively anyway, is it?
Exactly, yeah. And if anything, that's easier to do from home, really. Yeah. So, I've been working around for months and months. I don't think, I'll be going back personally. I can't see me going back, 2 or 3 days a week, maybe towards the end of the year. But I don't think our company, Bauer, I don't think they really want me to go back particularly and be a burden on anyone. All the cleaners and everything have to sort out the office. So it's been fine. It's been absolutely fine. And I've been, it's just, listening to. I miss the social aspect. I like going to an office and hanging out with young people. But apart from that, it's been absolutely fine, I have to say, yeah.
So you've been watching, I'm assuming you've been watching even more TV because, whenever I have that conversation with people, they say, there's far too much TV for anybody to watch. I always say, I know one man who does watch it all. Hilton.
Yeah, it's. I do watch it all, but I have to say, I watch the first few episodes of everything, and then I have to watch the first few episodes of everything to big new things to review them and preview them, and then if I like it, I'll carry on. And half the time I just drop it and will never watch any of the rest of it. So it's fine, really. And then I'm still bizarrely enough, now my routine starts with Frasier every morning. Frasier repeats on Channel 4 every day. Right. About 8:30, 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
So I'm still watching stuff like that.
2 episodes, aren't they? Usually 2 episodes.
Sometimes 3. Sometimes 3.
Oh, good grief.
See, isn't that very hard when you're meant to be trying to find new stuff when Frasier is being offered, which is absolutely unimpeachable.
Yeah.
But you think, I mean, they're
is,
just immaculate.
Incredible, yeah. And I think it's definitely the case. I think American comedy it doesn't. There are very few American sitcoms that have measured up to it in any way. But actually, British comedy, I think, you know, the likes of Fleabag and Inside Number 9. There's loads of great British comedy, but it's easier in quotes to do your 6-episode series of a British show than your 23 episodes of an American sitcom. Which demand. That's such as the.
So what would you suggest? Everybody is sitting at home at the moment thinking, well, I've watched everything I want to watch. What's the one thing you think they should watch that most people won't have watched?
I would say there's a show called The OA on Netflix.
The OA?
The OA, which they...
I'm making a note of this.
Make a note, yeah. It's created and written by Britton Marling and Zai Baltmanlich, two Americans who met in college. And they create a few indie films, and then a few years ago they came up with this extremely bizarre, out there. It's fantasy, sci-fi, thriller, film noir, drama, multi-dimensional. It's dealing with the state of the universe, basically, and so it's pretty big. It's huge, big ideas,
right,
but done in a very, in a brilliant, a beautiful kind of funny, witty, weird, bizarre way. There's talking octopuses, and you know, it's not to all tastes. It's not to all tastes, but it's one of my favourite shows of all time. There's only 2 seasons, all on Netflix, and famously Netflix axed it at the end of the 2nd season because it's an incredibly expensive show to make. Right. I went on set in the forest outside San Francisco about 3 years ago. 3 years ago, it was one of the greatest days of my life. Because I got to this weird forest outside San Francisco, and the Netflix publicist who's supposed to meet me there didn't show up for hours, and I just strolled on, bumped into, you know, the creator of the show, and he's like, "Oh, don't worry, we'll look after you," and let me go wherever I wanted. Speaking to Jason Isaacs, who's in there, he's a lovely guy, and then the Netflix publicist arrived after about 2 hours, and she was like, "Yeah, this is fine. I'll go and do something else." So she just left me. And it was absolutely fine. That never happens, in the meticulous.
No, in real life.
That's incredibly unusual. You're usually kind of chained to a chair somewhere.
Right.
The talking octopus is brought to you for a very brief conversation and talking and taken away.
And that was the 2nd season of a show I already loved. I already felt it was one of the greatest things ever. And the 2nd season ends on the most audacious ending to a TV show ever, and I don't say that lightly. So check it out. You probably think it's ludicrous,
and will not be followed up. So that's you're right. Yeah. Okay, so
it just ends on this absolutely extraordinary moment of boldness. Yeah.
Right. Oh well, we'll have to look that out, and we'll have to listen to watch all the episodes in order to get to that ending.
You do, yeah.
Because that's what happened. That's what happened.
It.
That's my frustration with television nowadays. It's either all in or not in at all.
Yeah.
You can't.
Yeah, you have to commit.
Yeah.
You have to commit.
So, do you've still got some records behind you? You still listen to those old-fashioned things called records.
Absolutely, you've made a sort of shrine behind you. It's absolutely fantastic.
It's a shrine, and I agree with you, Dale. I've been listening to albums a lot more all the way through, in this period, and albums that I haven't listened to since I bought them originally, or because let's face it, I feel like there's loads of albums you put them on. You kind of note your 2 or 3 favourite tracks, often the singles and maybe one other that they couldn't put out as singles. It's 7 minutes long or something. And that's all you ever listen to, really. So like going back and listening to some of this stuff, I was like, oh yeah, I've never really listened to that song since it came out in 1982. That happens quite a lot. Like the Simple Minds album, I listened to that a few times now.
Which one's that? I can't say bring it out. Which one?
New Gold Dream.
Right.
Yeah.
Is that the one with the hit single on?
Yeah, it's Glittering Prize, New Gold Dream. Those are the singles. Promised You a Miracle.
Single that we used to refer to as Promised You a Mackerel.
Promised You a Mackerel.
When we were at Smash Hits. We thought that was hilarious.
It was Ronnie Gere, who was their PR at the time, used to call it...
He didn't know it was their PR called it that.
That's where he started. It's a joke that never gets old for me.
Brilliant,
anyway.
Yeah. And well, I mean, to be fair, Jim Kerr's enunciation wasn't great, so it could have been Mackerel.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's like the singles are great, but then there's a song called it's illegible, by the way, the way it's printed. Look at that, completely illegible. Yeah. There's just some really good songs. Colours Flying, Catherine Wheel, which is the 2nd track. I don't think I listened to that for like 25 years, but it's brilliant and I love it. So
well, Mark,
stuff like that.
Mark always says you always say that you never listen to the second side of the second band album because you were just quite happy with the first side.
Well, I was worried that I thought the first side of the second band album was so good, was so immaculate, that I was terrified to turn the record over and find it was going to be a disappointment, which I thought it would be, because second sides usually aren't quite as good. So for years, I never listened to it. I now realise I have listened to it through various different streams, but I've never actually turned it over and sat down and addressed it myself.
I read the other day, I can't remember, in trade press somewhere, that a female singer-songwriter, I can't remember who it was. It wasn't PJ Harvey, it was somebody like that, who said her next record was going to have a side one and a side two, even though it's a CD.
Yeah.
You know? Or it's not even a CD, it's a stream. But,
Brilliant idea.
but it still likes the idea.
It indicates a gear change, doesn't it?
It does it, yeah.
Really important.
I bet it was Fiona Apple, wasn't it? It must be Fiona Apple.
No, it's already come out, hasn't it? It can't have been.
Okay.
It might have been. Possibly.
Okay.
Possibly. So you've got the great Steely Dan Pretzel Logic there, particularly a favourite. Who's that? Who's that alongside them? I can't see.
That's Big Audio Dynamite. Big Audio Dynamite.
Yeah.
Absolutely love Big Audio Dynamite. That album just will never gets old. It's like timeless, like weird, their own weird sound, and like songs about Nick Roeg films. That song equals MC squared, which is just basically an epic song about every Nick Roeg film ever from Performance onwards. It's just a song about a kind of British outre director. It's just fantastic. And Mick Jones, by the way, one thing I miss about the whole lockdown thing is wandering around Soho, as is my wont. And Mick Jones is always hanging out in Soho, just wandering from one Italian cafe to another. So I miss Mick Jones. So spotting Mick Jones in Soho.
Do you think it'll be a very different world we go back to after this? Do you think Mick Jones won't be kind of mooching about?
I hope he does. I hope he's still mooching about.
I hope he's healthy and so forth.
Yeah.
But
I mean, it feels like it's going to be different, doesn't it? Like, it just everything. I feel like, such as that people are being so meticulous about the distancing and the 2 meter, and you have to clean the toilet if you use your mum's toilet, and all of that. It just feels the rules are going to be in place for a long time, I feel. Yeah.
So how are you feeling about the prospect of football coming back?
Boyd? Very excited. Well,
I told Boyd he could only introduce one piece of Arsenal memorabilia.
Yeah. So,
I know you're a very big Arsenal man.
Yeah.
I've got quite a long way to go, haven't you? You know, I can't remember where you are now. Yeah.
With ninth. Well done, Mark. You've done.
Is that right? Yeah.
Yes.
I was looking at the league this morning because it was so nostalgic to see it again in a newspaper. I haven't seen it for about 2 months. I was thinking, how thrilling! Where were we? Let's go.
Yeah, so we're 1 point behind Spurs as well. Let's mention that. So it's going to be very exciting. But this is why I brought out. Look, this is a VHS cassette of the Arsenal Video Club from 1991, and they put out 5 of these in the season to keep, because back in the day, this is the time when there was no live football on TV at all before the Premier League. And in fact, the announcement that the BBC is going to be showing 4 live matches when the season resumes, they're the first matches they'll have shown from the top level football since 1988.
That's true.
So,
that's astonishing, isn't it? How do you feel about the idea of canned audience reaction? When you can have a button, can't you? You can press. You can suddenly get
there's loads
more of the crowd.
There's loads of cheap gags I can make at this point.
There are. Fill in your cheap gag there. Yeah, it'll be the same at the Emirates as ever. Yeah, however silent it is.
Deathly silent.
Deathly silent. We need piped-in crowd sound every time we play. I mean, it's something new for us.
Yeah.
But imagine a world where you had to subscribe to this VHS club to be able to see your team on TV. This went on for a few years. Arsenal did.
Yeah. Can you remember, talking about VHS, I was thinking about this morning. I was trying to see if I still had any, and I don't really. Can you remember the early days of video libraries, Boyd? Can you remember when they arrived? Can you remember the kind of how much it cost to join these places and to rent videos?
Yeah.
Because I remember it was a damn fortune, wasn't it?
It was, yeah. But that's because, do you remember when films came out on VHS back in the day, they were very, very expensive. They were, it'd cost you, I don't know. I remember when Close Encounters came out or something for the first time, and it was about 25, 30 quid back then. because
I can remember £80.
wow,
Warner Brothers used to put Disney used to put out their big children's films.
Yeah,
they'd do it every 10 years, and they put them out £80, so that only the retailers would then rent them out. So the public wouldn't buy them.
It is astonishing to think how much that would have been now. I mean, you're talking about hundreds of pounds. I mean, even an album was 17 quid, wasn't it? Which is the best part of what, 50 or 60 quid? 60 quid for an album.
I know, preposterous. Yeah, the early days of home video, home entertainment were absolutely insane. Yeah, ridiculous. Absolutely.
And of course, if you want to see your old Arsenal goals, you had to get the you had to
the video
VHS.
Yeah, there was no way around it. Yeah. But I mean, I've been a season ticket holder for years, but you still wanted to see. You can go to every game. I never went to away games, so this was the only way to keep up.
Yeah.
I've got a whole bloody box of them, by the way. I've got like about 40 of these.
So are you looking forward to seeing football without crowds?
I can't wait. Really? Just to see the football. I think I watched the German. I watched the Bundesliga games, and the level of the football is absolutely unaffected. I think completely unaffected. It's slightly weird. Then you just kind of get used to it, and then you're just concentrating on football. When it's going to be out your team playing, you're going to be focused on that as much as you ever were. So I can't wait. Yeah, and every single game is going to be on TV, every single one. So you just book off 3 weeks, and about.
I'm sure the broadcasters would be delighted to hear from you, Boyd. Because my view is, I think football with a crowd is the most exciting thing in the world. Football without a crowd is the dullest thing in the world. It strikes me.
I think the experience of being there with the crowd is the most exciting thing in the world. Absolutely. Remembering your first time when you emerge from the see the pitch, that fever pitch moment that Nick described. But I still think football itself is also brilliantly exciting as a game, and just the first game is Man City v Arsenal. There's no way that's not going to be exciting, despite the fact that it'll be really weird and have no atmosphere, etc.
You still get post-goal celebrations of people going sliding towards the corner's flag.
Yeah, in a weird way.
Nobody there,
But they can't go towards their teammates, can they?
No, they kind of do weird dances, but they do that anyway. They do weird celebratory things. So the celebrations are odd, but we'll get used to it. It'll be fine.
Oh, we shall see. I haven't really followed the German situation, but I understand there've been far less home wins.
Yeah,
I was reading some. Loads and loads. Home advantage doesn't count anything like it. Doesn't weigh anything like as much when you don't have 50,000 people breathing down the ref's neck.
Yeah, exactly. Which was the point made by the teams in the bottom three who were against the idea of neutral venues. But it turns out, they're not going to get much of an advantage just by playing at home either. So it obliterates that whole point.
Well, it's going to be interesting to see because it'll be football without the thing that, to my mind, drives football, which is spite. The most important thing in football is spite. Is a highly paid player screwing up in front of a load of people who just love to see it go wrong, don't they?
Spite will still be there. There'll still be a home for spite, and the spite will carry on social media unaffected, and there'll still be spite, Dave. Spite's not going to go away.
Oh, God, that's okay. So have you been, during this period, have you been doing an audit of your possessions? Have you?
Yeah, I have.
Why have I got that? Why have I got 4 of those?
Well, early on, as soon as lockdown occurred, I thought, well, I better go, because I've got so much stuff. I am a hoarder of shit. And I did go through, I did do an audit of it. I did, so I've kind of narrowed things down to my favourite things. So I wanted to show, I couldn't find the album, the vinyl of this, but I wanted to show you this. This is OMD's Architecture and Morality.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, from 1981. And the reason I mentioned this, Mark, is because whenever I see you, I probably mention this to you, but this is true. I did a day of work experience at Smash Hits in 1981 when you were, I believe, features editor. Oh, nice. Yeah, I love that album as well. And I won a competition with Radio 4 to do a day's work experience wherever I wanted. And of course I went, oh yeah, Smash Hits. And I was 14 years old. and you were assigned to show me around and deal with me and look after me.
Mark,
and you were so Mark.
I can remember this. Yeah,
right. And Mark was so nice to me. He was brilliant. And he said, "Well, what music do you like?" And I was like, "Well, so I'm into OMD and Japan and all those people." And he was like, "Oh, the new OMD album's just come in." Which was this. It just come into the office. I hadn't come in, and it was coming out, I think, the following week. And I was so excited by the idea of an advanced copy of this album. And you gave it to me, Mark. You said, "Take it, it's fine." And I'm like, really? I was absolutely astonished.
I'll pay.
That's right. Yeah. A forthcoming album by my favourite band. And I've never forgotten it. And I've got it somewhere in a box in my other room. I couldn't find it.
That's fantastic.
But yeah, it was brilliant. And I remember it was 1981, and I think you were features editor. And you also told me in that day, you were like telling me about Neil Tennant's band, the Pet Shop Boys. And I was like, yeah, whatever. We'll see.
Well, we said the same, don't worry.
Yeah.
I remember when he told him, he said, "What's the name of the band?" He said, "They're called the Pet Shop Boys," which is an awful silence, wasn't the day? With kind of tumbleweed and a distant church bell.
He'll be back. He'll be back.
He said he'll be back.
He'll be back with his tail between
when he left, we gave him that one of the mock-up of the cover with himself on it, as he always used to do, with the cover lines, And it said something like, "How my pop group went down the dumper, and I came crawling back to ask for my old job back again," by Neil Tennant. We thought that was hilarious.
Pick the wrong person to say that.
I know.
Yeah, that is brilliant.
What else you got?
I've got magazines, so I've pretty much got my favourite issues of all my favourite magazines. Right. But I want this one I like. This is The Face.
Oh, with Elvis Costello. Wow.
Yeah, 1983.
Oh, wow.
And there's loads of brilliant stuff in it. I mean, I love Elvis Costello anyway. So basically, I kept all the issues of my magazines with my favourite people in them. And
is that a perfect bound copy? Has that got a spine, or is that?
No, it hasn't got a spine. It's pretty thin.
Yeah. Wow.
But the Elvis Costello interview is great. It's also got a singles column by Robert Elms, and Robert Elms being horrible about everyone. And listen to this. I just want to read. This is the first paragraph of the singles column. "The charts these days are full of old grunters: Rod Stewart, Elton John, David Bowie." This is in 1983. Which, if nothing else, reflects the pathetic state of the bold new British pop. (Tears for Fears, Thompson Twins, Marillion). Homegrown alternatives consist mostly of entirely whining, short-haired hippies, (The Smiths, Brilliant, and New Order). Brilliant in the middle of The Smiths and New Order, I think it's really
well, he's pretty rich coming from Robert Elms. David Bowie is an old grunter or whatever it was from 1983.
Right. Let me see that. It does reflect the reality of David Bowie's career, which was for long periods nobody bought his records.
Yeah.
He'd have the odd hit. He'd have the odd Let's Dance, Ashes to Ashes, or whatever. And then there'd be long periods in between. They'd put out loads of stuff. Everybody was very ho-hum,
Yeah. So that was post Let's Dance, I think. So there was a lull. It was probably a lull.
Well, Let's Dance, of course, was his biggest hit, wasn't it?
Yeah. I think it was. Yeah. I want you to show. You talked about Q in the podcast. Obviously, sadly in danger. I hope someone rescues it. Whatever. This is the 21st anniversary issue with.
Oh, Damon, right. So what year is that? What year is that then?
That is 2007.
All right.
And they did the 21 people who changed music in that, and Lennon, McCartney, Kurt Cobain, David Bowie, blah blah blah, and they got famous people to write about these acts. Can you guess who wrote about Bob Dylan for the Q 21st anniversary?
Was it a musician or a writer?
It's more of a. It's not a musician, and it's not a professional journalist.
Oh, it's going to be somebody like sort of Nick Hornby or someone, isn't it? It's going to be
better than that.
Better than Nick Hornby. Okay.
Oh yeah.
Boris Johnson.
If only. No, I'll tell you, it's Quentin Tarantino.
Oh my God, that's very impressive.
It's good, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
And they got Coldplay and Brian Eno to write about Kraftwerk, which I thought was pretty impressive as well. Peter Hook on Ian Curtis, etc., etc. So it's Brian Wilson on Lennon and McCartney. That's pretty handy.
That's very good. That's quite good.
Yeah.
It's
that's pretty good.
Yeah, there won't be any more of that kind of thing, will there? It's the kind of thing that it only happens in print, doesn't it, really?
Yeah, exactly.
It only happens because somebody's prepared to go to the trouble of making it happen. It wouldn't happen in any other world.
And I
Well,
want to show you, this is an early copy of the magazine I still work for after 21 years.
right, yeah. That's your new issue of Heat with Star Wars. Star Wars as in the film.
Yeah, the first of the prequels. Remember when it came back?
Grief.
Yeah. In 1999, and there's loads of stuff on it. Every single detail of that film is. But the reason I want this issue is I'm going to post it because I've been writing about TV for 21 years in this magazine, and I reviewed the first ever episode of The Sopranos in it.
Oh, come on, read it.
Yeah.
God, have you got it?
Read it.
Brilliant.
Read it out.
I'll just read you the end. I'll read you the end. The wonder of this show is in the details, and there are dozens of sublime ones packed tightly into each hour-long segment. A series worth taping for posterity, I said.
Well, you've
covered yourself with glory.
You've covered yourself with glory there, definitely.
I do remember being at Heat briefly when it was launching, when Dave was launching it, and looking at you in your position at the desk opposite, and thinking that is surely the greatest job in the world. So it's no surprise that you're still there. I mean, why wouldn't you be? It's
right. Yeah.
incredible. Exactly.
Yeah. But I think it's interesting because if you on the one, obviously it's now a celebrity gossip magazine, which is it is what it is. But the TV stuff we've been writing about the best TV every week for 21 years. One way or another. So it is a chronicle of the way television has evolved and the great stuff. Like there's a Royal Family front cover there as well.
Right.
And that was my first front cover.
Yeah.
And that was quite a big exclusive because Caroline never used to do interviews.
Yeah.
And I was packed off to interview her and Craig Cash at the Groucho Club, and that went on for hours, and that was great. And I kind of became friends with her after that, which I know you're never supposed to become friends with the. But I'm never worried about that. I've always embraced becoming friends with them. So that rule I don't give a shit about that.
And you must have become pretty good pals with the Little Britain pair, because you wrote that book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I went on holiday with David Walliams and Caroline a few years after that. Yeah.
Oh.
And in fact,
wow.
There's a picture. Here we go. There's a picture of me and Caroline in New York in a New York cab.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah. That was great. That was really good. And I could go on forever. This is my Elton John Red Piano program, which is signed to Boyd with much love, Elton there. And that was when I interviewed him a couple of times for Heat. And my biggest ever achievement at Heat was when I interviewed him and he slagged off George Michael. And it went like became a global story. And George Michael faxed Heat the next week complaining and saying, Elton doesn't know anything about my life. Literally a fax arrived in the office.
Elton just does this regularly, doesn't he? Every couple of years, it's somebody. It's Madonna or it's George Michael. Right. It's whoever. There's just that side of it. Yeah. He can't stop himself doing it. I suppose he knows he gets huge publicity out of doing it, doesn't he?
Yeah. And I remember being worried at the time that, slightly worried about the George Michael thing, because he was really harsh. He basically accused him of being a pothead who just was smoking spliff all day, which I think was fairly accurate. But I was worried that this was, did I catch Elton off the cuff, in a moment where suddenly all this stuff came forth, but he was absolutely fine with it. And I interviewed him in Atlanta, in his apartment in Atlanta, for I think it was Songs for the West Coast, the album, which was kind of his best, late-ish period album. And I got there on the Friday night before the Saturday. The interview was supposed to happen on the Saturday at the apartment, and he invited me over for dinner the night before. So I kind of off the record. I got to meet him and have a whole evening with him, and him just showing me around his flat, his apartment. I mean, it's like a massive museum to art and photography. And he had the cook made dinner, and these kind of egg burrito things. And I remember they were delicious egg burritos. And I remember him saying, "Oh, these are incredible." He's like, "Yeah, Sting had 5 of those." But the best thing was, I was even more worried about this thing that happened than the whole George Michael thing, because he showed me around this huge apartment, like acres and acres of space, and he's like, "This is my very special room." It was a room of porn DVDs, stacks and stacks of porn on DVD. Yeah, because I guess back then, this is quite a few years ago, you couldn't just get it online. Pornhub didn't exist. Let me just make that point. And I was like, "Oh, amazing. This is," and he was like, "Yeah, it's brilliant, isn't it?" And I was like, "Yeah, me and David, we like to watch a bit of porn, blah, 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 blah." I was like, "Oh, incredible." And I thought it was so fascinating but I didn't know whether I could include it in the piece, because this was just the pre-interview meeting, But I thought it'd be fine, And I asked his publicist when I got back to write it up for the magazine, can I include the porn room bit, So I think it's a really interesting detail. And the publicist was like, "I'll try and find out." I'll try and get in touch. But Elton's on tour and he's quite slow. And he never got back to me. And I thought, I'll be bold. I'll put the porn room in. And of course, he didn't give a shit. He was absolutely fine with it. But yeah, the porn room was a big moment where I didn't know what to do about the ambiguity of the on-off the record issue.
But I guarantee the PR will never have asked.
You're right. You're absolutely right.
If you ever ask a PR, because as far as the PR is concerned, when the interview's done, they don't have to think about it anymore.
Yeah,
you know, the last thing they want to do is go back and say, Boyd was wondering if you could
Yeah.
And also, why would he have showed it to you if he hadn't wanted you to talk about it? I mean, you know, if he'd really been worried about it, he wouldn't have risked it. You know, it's just Elton's just an impossible urge to show off, isn't it?
So he had three. He still does, doesn't he? He's got three bases. He's got Windsor, isn't he? Yeah. He's got south of France, and he's got Atlanta, as you said.
Yeah.
And so, how big was this place? People talk about Elton's apartment. You think, what, is it a block of flats?
I'll tell you, it's 2 floors. Imagine like the biggest apartment block you can imagine. You know, it's 2 floors of this huge condominium, is what they call them in America. And I would say, certainly 1 floor was effectively an art space, kind of the size of a wing of the Tate Modern or something. You know, he had hundreds and hundreds of original photographs and sculptures, massive sculptures. So that alone was a huge, massive thing. Yeah. And the room where I entered in, which is his front room, you know, he had the piano and the massive TV, and it was fucking huge, basically. Yeah.
His place in London, there's that brilliant bit in the Alexis Petridis book, which I'm sure you've read. His place in London, he used to get the staff, when he was coming down for breakfast, he'd ring a bell and they would play kind of massive orchestral music on giant speakers all over the house to announce his arrival. Which I thought was just beautiful. Why not? You've got to be kind of on stage the whole time, you know.
So there's very little film and TV production going on at the moment. Is that going to result in a great big hole in the release schedules in whenever?
Early next year? I think it will. Yeah. I mean, the big problem is for TV is the summer. I mean, you know, the summer where there was supposed to be the Olympics, the World, you know, the Euros, Wimbledon, golf. I mean, they've got the BBC and ITV got hundreds and hundreds of hours to fill. That's going to be interesting. And then film-wise, I think there's going to be a big. I think because normally all the films that come out late in the autumn onwards are the Oscar-worthy, all the best films basically, and a lot of those won't have been finished. It's going to be a really weird time. Yeah, I don't know how they're going to resolve it, and I think only the biggest budget films, like the indie films, it's easier for them to work around it. I think to find new ways of filming, but the huge big budget ones, I don't know what they're going to do. Yeah, it's going to be fascinating to see what happens. Luckily, I think.
Go on.
I was going to say, luckily we've got Netflix and Amazon. Like Netflix I know they've got dozens of stuff, of content, you know, that's already been made. So, because they basically make hundreds of new shows every year now. Amazon Prime not far behind. So all of these streaming services mean that there's going to be more stuff for people to watch than there would have been. If this had happened 5 years ago, I think there would have been desolate months ahead with nothing new at all. But
presumably there's going to be a big drought in about 2 or 3 years' time or whatever. Is that right? When the stuff that's being worked on now is being so delayed or should have been started working on now is so delayed that there just won't be that much stuff in 2 years' time?
I think it'll be fine because there's so many shows being made now that, you know, effectively something like, you know, hundreds of scripted dramas and comedies every year. So there'll be, you know, even if 100 of those get delayed, you've still got the other few hundred. So TV is the expanding industry, really.
Yeah.
With more and more streaming services every week, Disney Plus, Apple, HBO launched this week. So I don't think there'll be a drought. I really don't.
Yeah. So let me ask you this: you know, because normal TV and normal entertainment has been thrown back into this challenging situation. What's been your favourite creative response to this situation? I'll tell you what mine is before you think.
Yeah.
Andrew Cottrell, the BBC sports reporters.
Yes. Oh, I've seen those. Yeah. With his dogs?
Reports on taking his dogs out for a walk. Yeah. I'm sorry, has been comedy gold. And if I was a professional comedy writer, I'd be thinking, I can't compete with this.
Yeah.
This is funnier, this is sweeter, this is cheaper. You know.
Yeah.
There have been extraordinary things like that. Is there anything else struck you?
Yeah, they've been brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. He's been fantastic. And there's been a few, I think, W1A did, have you seen W1A did a special episode, which worked, I think, particularly because it was depicting what exactly is happening at the BBC, where they're having a Zoom meeting like this to decide what the hell to do with their schedules. Yeah. And with those W1A characters scripted by John Morton, who wrote the show, and all of the characters behaving in exactly the way they would in lockdown was fantastic. And that's on YouTube, I think.
On Zoom, it's a Zoom thing too, which is even
more
appropriate,
thing, yeah.
Isn't it? I know, all those cliches in there.
Yeah, absolutely perfect. I love that. I'm a big Doctor Who nerd. So a journalist at Doctor Who Monthly has started encouraging the writers, Stephen Moffat, Russell T Davies, and the stars of Doctor Who early on in the lockdown to do viewing parties, basically, watch-along events for everyone, where you'd start watching a classic episode at the same time and they'd chat about it and reveal stuff behind the scenes. And they have been, honestly, there have been loads of them. Every week there's 2 or 3 now. And it's all down to this one journalist who just thought, oh, why not try this? And they've all come together, and she has she has all the stars. David Tennant will chip in, and it's been incredible for a Who fan to kind of get this almost like a live director's commentary, but better, via social media on some of the best episodes ever. It's been a brilliant thing. So stuff like that, I think, has been great.
Yeah, and you can't help but think that things like this won't go away once if normality is restored, because there's a certain kind of people have had to come out from behind their public image, haven't they? Really, because
I think so.
We're all in the same boat. We're all sitting at home,
Exactly.
Some people have got a slightly nicer boat, but we're all.
But also, aren't we now addicted to the idea that you can react so quickly? That you don't have to wait for a Friday night radio program or whatever. So the response was like Matt Lucas and the Boris Johnson announcement was just absolutely incredible. That came out about an hour later, and the next morning it had 4.5 million views. And we're just used to that response now.
Yeah, and I think there's a directness and an unfiltered quality to those things. So they're not all. It's not all being put through the filter of the BBC departments to okay every detail, and like the Doctor Who things, for example, they seem to have bypassed the BBC entirely. Well, not entirely, but to some extent they've kind of.
I bet they have.
Yeah, do you know what I mean? Stephen Moffat can say what the hell he likes in a live.
What are they going to do?
What can they do? Right. So it's just more. You get more honest insights than you would have done. 4 months ago, before this whole thing happened, about some of these great cultural items. It's really interesting.
Yeah. Well, Boyd, it's been lovely to talk to you. What are you doing for the rest of the day?
I'm doing my weekly Pilot TV podcast, which is our podcast I do for Pilot TV magazine. We effectively launched a new magazine, by the way. Last year. It comes out with Empire every quarter, still going, and we do a weekly podcast about. We're recommending the best TV, filtering out all the shit, and recommending the best things every single week. So I'm doing that in about an hour, and then watching some other TV. I've got to watch. I'll tell you what, I've got to watch this afternoon. I've got to watch the Jeffrey Epstein documentary on Netflix.
Oh right, okay.
Yeah, which is going to be grim, I think. But
yeah, it could be. Well, Boyd, it's been lovely to talk to you.
And we shall so much.
That's fabulous.
We should see you. We should see you on the other side. Look forward to it. Cheers.
Thanks so much for inviting me. It's been such a treat. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Boyd.
Bye.